I'm Dan Fitzpatrick here at stockmarketmentor.com on April 21st. Okay, before we get back to Netflix here, let's look at the SPY. This thing is kind of doing what I've been saying it was going to do, at least so far. And that is, if we look at the SPY, I've got that. I've kind of envisioned this type of thing. It's not predicting, it's just what I would like to see happen in the long run. And that would be this pulling back, hopefully not coming down here, but finding some kind of a higher low somewhere around here, maybe lower, who knows. The idea though is that it does not penetrate or it doesn't surpass this low here. So some kind of move back higher, ideally above here, would reinforce this as an absolute tradable bottom. Is it the absolute bottom? I don't know, depending on what the heck your definition of absolute is. All I want to know is that we're continuing to get some kind of stabilization. I can't really make that declaration now, though you can see that the volatility, while still high, is not exactly off the charts, literally. We're just kind of settling into this range, okay? So I'm hoping that we see this and then a little bit of a move higher. All the while, what I'm really interested in is this. I'm interested in the passage of time. The x-axis just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, because if it starts to do that, then what we really see is we see stocks start to set up, and they really start to set up. All this time passes, and then by sometime in May, my sense is that a lot of stocks that right now are just kind of too early to buy are going to be giving us these setups to where they're in these little consolidation patterns, and then we're waiting for a breakout. Right now, it just seems like the breakouts are not really working. They're not really working that well. And that leads me, ladies and gentlemen, to Netflix. So I'm going to get off of this chart. I was explaining to our option members how an iron condor works. So this is really confusing unless you've seen that video. So I'm not going to do that. In fact, I'm going to get rid of this. Doesn't mean anything. So anyway, let me get to a different one here. This is the one I really wanted to show you. So Netflix reported strong earnings on Friday, and the stock popped up. And then today it really gapped up nicely, ran way up, and then pulled back to what was really kind of a crappy close if you look at the closing location value. Like here's the high, here's the low. Let's draw a box instead. Okay. So within this box, this is really, really low in the box. And so the way I look at this is it's kind of a failed breakout. Yes, it was up a point and a third, like 1.3%. But from a monster earnings number, at least that's what the market thought. I kind of thought like, dude, since you're not gonna disclose what your subscribers numbers are, well, I don't really give a rip. I'll just look at the charts. But anyway, so this is where this is now, but it is up. A positive day is a positive day. I wouldn't buy it here. I would want to see more of some backing, because I look at this as just a failed breakout. I'll do it this way. This is really where this last high was. So this got above the high, superseded the high. So it's kind of like a nice W pattern, a couple of V's here, and now a breakout here. The only problem is this really didn't supersede this high. It failed. It came back. And so I'm looking at this resistance as still viable resistance, not a real good development for the bulls if you are expecting the stock just to keep going, if you're expecting it just to run up. Caveat, it might. I actually do have a crystal ball that one of my members gave me, but it's never worked. So what I'm looking for here is some kind of a pullback, ideally higher than that, maybe a little pullback. If the market kind of strengthens, we get kind of a move lower here. And then we get a move higher. Like I've seen this kind of pattern before. But the idea here is you don't want to be buying a stock on breakouts when breakouts aren't working, and they're not. It's a heavy market. The lines down here are the S&P in the red and the NASDAQ in the blue. They're basically in sync, so I could just draw one big thick one. This is the way the market's going. So you like Netflix, if you're looking at one of the big dogs, this is one of them. You want to be in a stock like Netflix as opposed to something like Meta, which is, I mean, this is a mega cap stock, so of course it's going to mimic the Nasdaq 100. But you don't want to be in stocks like this. Amazon, you know, it's going down, I don't know, just as fast as Bezos's blue phallic symbol, otherwise known as the Blue Origin or something like that, came down with 5 space chicks dressed in blue. I don't even know why I went there. Gratuitous criticism. So this continues to fall as well. Apple, not good. Tesla, well, while I'm on Microsoft, not good. Tesla, not good. NVIDIA, definitely not good. So all of these are tracking along the major indexes. So we want to get stocks like Netflix. We want to get something like this that's going the other way. We want to get like TAT Technologies. Now, this thing absolutely barfed today after a key breakout on Friday. However, you can see the trend is higher as opposed to the S&P falling. So I wouldn't buy this stock right now. No way. But it is one that I'd watch and see if it kind of settles out a little bit. So the key point of this is no matter what a particular stock is doing at any given point in time, in this market, it has to be moving away from the rest of the market, away from the S&P. These are outperformers. And during a very, very weak, nasty tape like this, an outperformer is going to be a great performer when the tape turns positive, and it's going to start moving higher. It's just a matter of time. Just the market just needs a little more clarity. So hang in there. I would just say, like, dude, don't trade too much. If you don't see a perfect trade, like literally a perfect trade, a trade that meets your criteria, don't take the trade. Don't fall into the, well, I'll take a shot, or, well, I got a hunch, maybe I'll buy a bunch. Don't do that. Be a pro. Pros don't trade when they don't feel like the odds are in their favor, okay? And the markets don't care what you think. The market's just going to do what the market's going to do, okay? That's all I got for you. Hope you all had a great day. Awesome Easter, and let's go get them tomorrow.